celebrate the Pentecost. As we celebrate also the month of Mary, it's not by accident. Holy Spirit, our Blessed Mother, this is certainly a development of thought that St. Maximilian Kolbe tried to reflect upon and try to live out in his life. And we'll touch on that in a bit. Father Masseo Gonzales, and it's wonderful to be here. And I think that often when people think of St. Maximilian Kolbe, especially the laity, there's a certain idea, an event that comes up. So if I was to go out there and ask the laity, what comes to your mind when I mention St. Maximilian Kolbe? St. Maximilian Kolbe, what do you think comes to your mind?
Martyrdom, perhaps.
Very good, very good. Martyrdom, Auschwitz. He gave his life up for a man, a father of a family. Yeah, that's typically what comes up. And it's beautiful. And so St. Maximilian Kolbe was recognized as a martyr of the faith, which is odd, because he didn't necessarily die for the faith per se, like other martyrs did. The Holy Father did recognize him as a martyr for the faith, and also was wearing white in light of his desire for purity and holiness. And so yes, St. Maximilian Kolbe did give his life up for a father in Auschwitz. And the story goes that this is the second time that St. Maximilian Kolbe was arrested. And they were arresting a number of political leaders at that time, especially the intellectuals, especially those who did the type of work that Maximilian did. So he had the largest publication at that time in Poland, and he had traveled extensively. He had a doctorate in theology, a doctorate in philosophy by the age of 25, and his movement was taken off. And they arrest him for the second time. They take him to Auschwitz, and a prisoner, we think there were 3 prisoners that escaped. And so the Nazis, as a way of intimidation, they would put to death 10 people. They would starve them to death. Cruel form of punishment. And so the Gestapo's walking around, and you've probably heard this story, but I think it's important to tell again. He's choosing different people, of course, and out of this one bunker that St. Maximilian Kolbe was in, and he gets to this one man, who's a Polish man named Francis, coincidentally, and Francis says, well, I'm a father, and he breaks down and begins to cry. And so St. Maximilian Kolbe steps up, and we think he may have spoken in German, because he had a command of the German language. And so he speaks up, and he says, well, who are you? The Gestapo asks him, and he says, what did he say? And so Pope John, yeah, I'm a priest. Yeah, great role model for a priest in terms of sacrifice and offering ourselves, yeah. So he says, I am a priest, and he says, okay. So sure enough, he goes in, but he doesn't die. That's a problem. He's not able to starve to death. They put him in there. He's one of the last ones. And then finally, they inject him with some acid. That's what eventually he does. And he dies on beautiful August 14th, the day before the Assumption of our Blessed Mother. He had such a great love for the Immaculate Conception, but also for the Assumption. And so that's what people know about his death. They say, that's wonderful, it's cute, that's good, but it hurts me whenever I hear that, because that's their limited thinking on the life of St. Maximilian Kolbe. They don't know that there's a whole tradition here, a whole theological tradition that he introduced to the church as well. And it's so important to understand this, because the reason St. Maximilian Kolbe was able to surrender to our Blessed Mother at all times, especially in Auschwitz, because of his great love and relationship that he had developed with her prior to this, long before. And so here is a man that we read about in his commentary by Father Anselm Rome, and he's a Conventual Franciscan, and not too long ago did he pass away, and many of the friars are familiar with his writing. He writes that Kolbe needed every person he could attract, but still he went for quality, not quantity. And what they produced by 1939, the Night of the Immaculate, circulated 750,000 copies monthly. So 750,000 copies monthly. The little journal issued 137,000 daily newspapers, and even more on weekends. This wasn't small part, a poor country of about 20 million people. He published over 220,000 copies of various children's magazines. Notice his thinking. And this is shaped by his exposure to the Masons. He saw what the Masons were doing when he was studying in theology, and he must have been about 24 or 25 at that time. And there are a couple things that move St. Maximilian Kolbe. He's there and he's studying in Rome, and he's seeing the Italian Masons who are attacking the church through literature, a lot of anti-Catholic literature. And they were holding up this banner that showed Lucifer stepping over the Archangel Michael. Yeah. And they were hurling insults at the Holy Father. And in their literature, St. Maximilian Kolbe eventually studied them. He sees that what they would do then, in order to destroy the Catholic Church, the Masons, they couldn't tear them down logically. You can't argue with the Catholic Church logically, because we're always going to defend the truth, and we have brilliant scholars a little bit. What the Masons will do will break us down morally. They will corrupt the church. This was their golden mission. It's written in their declaration. And St. Maximilian Kolbe saw this. And of course, he comes from a military background. He was born in 1894, and he was born when Russia had occupied Poland, and his father eventually died in fighting with the Russians. And so he grew up as a strategist. He was a brilliant thinker when he was a small child. And afterwards, he received his vocations when a Conventual Franciscan went over to the friars in their parish, and they gave a wonderful talk. And St. Maximilian Kolbe saw this Conventual Franciscan priest preaching. He fell in love with the friars. He began to join the friars. Right before he was going to join, however, he was thinking about changing his mind to leave, to fight in the military. He had a brilliant strategic military mind. And so his mother comes knocking on the door. She convinces him to go forward along with his brother, so he eventually joins. But his whole thinking here is strategy. He said we need to take advantage and exploit the things of the world. The enemy's doing it. We need to do it. How do we do it? Through the media, through the press. And so his ministry just flourished. And so imagine this man now, he's in Auschwitz with all these accomplishments that he had accomplished in his life. With over 700 friars living at one time in a friary. 700! Think about the number we have here in our other friaries. 700, largest monastery in the world. And if you go there, you see these huge buildings that were there. They had their own fire department. They had their own infirmary. Yeah? They had all these large printing presses there. There were 700 friars living there. That's just that friary. That doesn't include the friary in Japan that he had already founded. He was planning on founding another one in India and going east. He had already had ideas of having major movies with quality actors and actresses in Europe. This is what he wanted to do. He already had a radio station. They were already building a landing for a plane to land to make his distribution more effective. So brilliant thinker. At the same time, here he is in Auschwitz by himself. And yet, this wasn't a surprise to St. Maximilian Kolbe. He knew he was going to die a martyr's death, and he wanted to die a martyr's death. And he knew that his ashes would be spread. It comes out in his writings. Someday my ashes will be spread. Yeah. But for him, the City of the Immaculate wasn't dependent on what he did. And this is a great misconception of many people, including religious. Yeah, we get focused on what we do. St. Maximilian Kolbe writes that the real City of the Immaculate is within. As long as we have that city within, that holy place within, where our Blessed Mother resides, where Jesus resides, we have nothing to worry about. And so he writes, about this whole notion of development of the MI. The progress of Nipicolona. On what does this progress of the Immaculate's dwelling place depend? Could it be only the removal of the fence of the boundary of the station that would indicate progress? Certainly not. Nor are new buildings a sign of progress. And when finally some very modern machinery arrives and various technically perfected methods are employed, that will not be progress in the strictest sense of the word. And this is a man that was brilliant, that was very much into technology. If the night, that is, the magazine, triples in its circulation, even that will not be true progress in Nipicolona. For all these are simply external matters, sometimes even delusive. So notice how the devil can work. We think we're productive by our work, by our numbers. If we use the criteria of the world to measure our work, St. Maximilian Kolbe says, be very careful. On what does the essential progress of Nipicolona depend? Really, Nipicolona is not merely exterior activity, whether on the other side of the fence or within the closure, but above all, it is our souls. All things, even knowledge and science, are exterior to it. Progress of the soul is true progress. Daily, ever more and more, drawing near to the Immaculate is the only true progress. And even if it came to the point of having to close down the activity of Nipicolona, if all the members of the MI defected, even if we were scattered like autumn leaves throughout the world. This is what happened, they were scattered. All the friars left Nipicolona because of the war. As long as in our souls the ideal of the MI makes progress and unfolds, then we can boldly claim Nipicolona is making progress. We also have his writing on the Holy Spirit, and so anyway, he eventually develops his whole theology of the Immaculate Conception, and he goes through a couple of personal experiences as a child. One is an actual apparition of our Blessed Mother, an appearance of our Blessed Mother. She offers him 2 roses, a red rose and a wise rose. She says, which one do you want? And he had just gotten in trouble with his mother. And he goes to our Blessed Mother as he's praying, and she appears and says, what rose do you want? A white one or a red one? Red one for martyr, white for purity. And he says, both. And sure enough, he eventually embraces those when he's dead. So he grows up and he becomes a brilliant man, and